Well, I was born in China and live in Beijing, China for 10 years, and then my family moved to Hong Kong for 10 years, and then I moved to LA at age 21. But ever since I was a kid, even back in China, I've always been fascinated by designs of ancient creatures or monsters and stuff like that. I've always been drawn to it. Those type of whether it's sculptures or paintings, anything that has creatures in them. I guess I've always had that affinity to those type of things, but I don't understand why, but it's always been with me. I think it is just when I look at a completely alien or never before seen creature or character, there's just something innately exciting about that. I don't know. I cannot put my fingers on it. What it is. It's very intriguing to me. Like how they come up with stuff like that. Because when I was a kid. I was just drawn to the aspect of, oh, that looks, that looks very, very different. That looks very, very exciting. I don't know why, but I want to find out what it is about this character, how they did it. But as I grew older, it became sort of I became more analytical. I look at something, I want to figure out what's different about this one. How is it different from the others? And later on, I became even more scientific. How does it work? What's making this thing possible? So I guess, but all along, the different aspects of monsters and creatures I've always been fascinated with. I remember the first time I saw the alien. I mean, there's no denying that. I mean, first time I saw an alien creature, from the film Aliens. I was blown away by it. That thing was always in the shadows. Like, what is that? But it's very, very intriguing. And I also remember first time I saw the Predator, when the mask came off. That was completely unexpected. And then things like the face hugger, all those type of things. There are just so many. But the memorable ones, just in recent film history, I could probably say the Alien and the Predator. I've always enjoyed sculpting since I was a little kid. I started playing with Play-Doh, I believe, at age 3 or 4, as far as I can remember. But mainly, it's just always been a hobby. I've been just sculpting on and off as a hobby throughout most of my adult years. I actually started professional sculpting only a couple of years ago. Right now I'm 42. I started doing sculpture full-time at age 40. Art was never really a goal for me because I don't know. I've always had that affinity for art. I love art, but for some reason it never occurred to me to become an artist. I've always I used to draw a lot, but then I stopped drawing. I kept sculpting, but mainly as a hobby, just doodle. Arts was never a possible career choice for me. For some reason, it just never popped into my consciousness. My background is actually, I went to business school. I studied marketing. And then I graduated, I became a self-taught programmer. I learned how to build websites, how to do graphic design. So I started my own little web design company, and I built websites for 10 years. My turning point, actually, what led me to switch from being a web programmer to a full-time sculptor was actually at one point I was approached by two sculptors, Brendan and Jared Shiflett. They asked me to build a website for them, and I did. And at the end of the process, I built a forum for them. I figured might as well just test out the features. So I posted some of my sculptures on their forum. Next thing you know, people started emailing me, telling me they wanted to buy my sculptures. Really? And then it dawned on me, there is something there. I could possibly make the switch. So I started doing model kits as part-time. And then within 2 years, that side job just kind of picked up. And I reached the point where I felt confident enough I can make the switch because of my background in online programming and online marketing. I've thought it might be possible for me to market myself at this age, at age 39 or at age 39, I can possibly market myself without going through the shops or working in the film industry and be an independent artist. So that was a turning point. And then I had a hard time actually trying to convince my wife, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna close down my web business and I'm gonna become a sculptor. And actually at that time, we just had our first son. So it took quite a bit of convincing for me to make that switch. But I'm glad that she was very supportive of me and I make the switch. And so that was 2.5, 3 years ago, that I make the switch from web programming to sculpting and designing my own characters and release them as model kits. That's when I started doing concept design work for movies. And it has just been, a very, very different experience. And I've been just working nonstop ever since. I think that, for me, one, because of the limited experience or exposure I've had in the film industry, if you will. I've been lucky in the sense that, I've always been just trying to do something for myself. If first and foremost, it has to please me. Because I think at the end of the day, I'm not getting any younger. I have to do something that I think that would contribute to my growth as an artist. I want to do something that I enjoy doing or enjoy making. So when I work for someone else, I try to bring that type of mentality to it. Not that I won't take directions from other people, but I try to honestly give my interpretation or give my analysis of how a character should be or how art can be created or presented from that angle. In terms of commercial products, I try to do something that I like, but at the same time that's commercially viable. If you want to think what the consumers will like, how they will react to a certain theme or products. For myself, I enjoy all sorts of different things. I enjoy monsters just as much as I enjoy things that are beautiful. But it's just so that I'm in a position where most of my fans are monster lovers. They love monsters, which is no problem for me because I love that too. But at the end of the day, I'm really drawn to just, things that are all across different spectrums. In terms of dealing with criticism, obviously that is a relatively new thing for me because before I've been just calling my own shots or doing my own things. If people they didn't like it, fine, I'll find someone else. Working with directors or art directors, that becomes a different scenario. But I've always been used to that type of interaction with people because before, when I was running my own business, I was a designer, I was a programmer, and I always go to my client with the best solution, from my perspective. But that might not be their reaction to whatever proposal that I was, presenting them with. Dealing with customers, I've always been accustomed to that for the last 10 years of my life. Before I even became a professional artist, I was always used to just working with people, knowing where and when my ego would stop and the transaction will have to come in. and to make it work. Because at the end of the day, when someone else hands me a paycheck and I'm performing a task, it's not about what I want. It's about getting what the client needs and what they're paying for. So that part I have no problem with. My artistic influences have always been, the Renaissance masters, Michelangelo, Bernini, all the way to Rodin, Alfred Gilbert, all of the special effects master sculptors. I mentioned before, Brendan and Jared Schiffler, they're both good friends of mine, fantastic sculptors. Love their work. Carlos Huente, Jose Fernandez, Steve Wang, George Duchel. I mean, and the list just goes on and on. I mean, back in the day, I used to love the works of the Japanese sculptors, the garage kit sculptors, Nirasawa, Takeya. I mean, I try to draw my influences from all over the place. If there's, because I liken it to be the only way to better myself as an artist is to learn from all disciplines. Because you never know where that next inspiration is going to be coming from. It could be coming from a dance routine. It could be coming from a piece of music. Because at the end of the day, I think all these different art forms are kind of related, are kind of interrelated. It's all about expressing the human emotion. All I'm doing here is I'm sculpting something in clay. I'm trying to tell a story. I'm trying to formulate a character, but the driving force behind that, is more than just, looking at some grand sculpture and admiring the artistic effort that went into it. It's actually a lot of different things. If I could be just watching people playing the drums, and that feeling, that energy, that whatever is energizing me can just be translated into my work. So in that sense, I mean, I look to all the different artists and try to draw whatever it is that they're doing and try to bring that into my work. For someone getting into this for the first time, I would tell them, keep an open mind, in terms of your artistic interpretation. A lot of the young kids or young artists that I've met, they're always trying to do something cool. They think that, I think they pay too much attention to the outer exterior. What I would advise somebody coming from that background to do is really keep an open mind, keep learning, keep bettering yourself, and also want to balance the business side of things and the artistic side of things. You cannot have one without the other. You can be the greatest artist in the world, but if nobody is aware of that you exist, then it's not gonna make a difference. Or you could be the best salesman, but if you cannot create, that's not gonna work either. We're in the business, or we're in the profession where the two kind of have to go hand in hand. You have to keep constantly better yourself, and to keep and constantly try to become a better, for lack of a better description, a better business person. Because at the end of the day, it's all about interpersonal relationships. And so for somebody starting out, yes, try to become a better artist, but at the same time, try to be more personable. Learn from different people, not just the art, but also how to deal with different people. Yeah, I always want to do different and bigger things, not in terms of size. Yes, I would love to sculpt something that are maybe 10 feet tall. Just stuff that I've never attempted before, and that's what's keeping it interesting for me, because my professional career has been very, very short up to this point. I don't have a huge portfolio, but there are so many things that I want to attempt, that I want to accomplish. So I'm just trying to get that done one at a time, because if I look at Michelangelo's work, Bernini's work, I've never attempted that. Why not? But we're living in a digital age where where you can copy and paste, and we can use rubber stamps and just make things done much quicker. Why not just combine the knowledge of the modern day era, but with the mentality of the masters, the old masters from back in the day, and try to create something new. Use the mixture of all these different tools and different sources of inspiration, and create something exciting. Whatever we're doing in clay, or doing something in the computer. So that has always been my driving force, anyways. And every day I get up, when I come to work and come to my studio, I feel energized, not because I get to do art. No, I want to do something different. I want to do something new that I've never attempted before.